Welcome to the PoEDtry Podcast, a space for talking about teaching, writing, and teaching writing. I'm your host, Donnie Welch, a poet and children's author living in New York City. Now let's get to today's episode. Defiance. A poet wants to eat the world. A poet wants to eat the world, and I say, okay, cool. On a large piece of white butcher paper taped to a window in the school's library, the poet slowly writes, "There was an old lady who swallowed the world. She tried not to barf when she swallowed the world. She swallowed the world to fill up Kelly. I don't know why she filled up Kelly, perhaps she'll..." We're working on a recreation of "There was an old lady who swallowed a fly," using the scheme of the text, but changing the object that gets eaten. Kelly, in this case, is the classroom teacher. The workshop is in a self-contained setting with young autistic students. In this kind of setting, data-driven classroom management strategies and behavioral intervention can be standard tools. But if I were to bribe with stickers, candy, or weird fake school dollars, like in my school, my middle school to be more specific, the currency was called skipper cash. So if I were to bribe kids with this kind of stuff to edit their poetry, it wouldn't be in their voice. Their art would be a vector for parroting my or the school's ideas and values. In this setting, other educators might read this poem's structure and try to scaffold the poet into reordering it. Logically, the world shouldn't fill up Kelly. After all, Kelly is only one person and the world is massive in comparison. Or they might ask for an edit that's a little less defiant. Because while the poem is funny to the outside viewer, during the workshop this poet was deadly serious. They were angry and hurt. The humor of this poem is our adult observer lens shaping the reading. The emotional truth of this poem is painful. She tried not to barf when she swallowed the world. Defiance is a well-known subject in special education with official terms like oppositional defiant disorder, or ODD, all the way down to staff room gossip following kids from grade to grade. It's considered a bad thing, but I'm not sure it is. I'm well aware of the challenges of working with students with ODD labels, and I'm not attempting to belittle the amount of adapting and patience required in that work or talk down about the efforts of paras, teacher assistants, and teachers doing that work. What I am saying is that defiance is a life skill. I say this acknowledging my privilege and hear that in a world where black children are being killed for simply walking through neighborhoods or carrying a toy gun, the concept is rightly frightening to educators and caregivers. But teaching compliance is not setting students up for a successful, independent life. We've seen over and over again footage that confirms compliance doesn't ensure safety if you're anything besides a cis-het, able-bodied white man. We have proof through the present that compliance only further entrenches whiteness and white power, yet it remains a standard our students are held to in the name of development and management. But development by what metric? Who developed these milestones and to what end, and what do our ideas of a managed classroom have a history in? These are questions for self-reflection that I leave to you as I'm still finding my own answers to them. We find ourselves touched by Maurice Sendak's Wild Things shouting, "We'll eat you up! We love you so!" But there's nothing cutesy about that. It's aggressive. It's defiant. It's honestly not much different than what the poet in this workshop is saying. And yet we've collectively agreed to recognize and find the love in Sendak's character while problematizing what so many young folks are trying to communicate. The power dynamics at play between the poet and their teacher may have necessitated Kelly getting eaten. Maybe it was a bad day. Maybe breakfast sucked. Maybe something out of Kelly's control happened, a sickness, a death, a sorrow that's too difficult to share. As it turns out, the poet was told they're moving schools next year. Oh, please don't go. Knowing that, there's a touching beauty to the order of this poet's work. The world eaten after Kelly rather than before. Poetry is a genre where one person can, in fact, be your whole world. This metaphor holds an emotional truth in a poem that defies the larger, pragmatic world. And the teacher might just be a student's world. They might be the most consistent caregiver they have. That sense of love and caring are overwhelming, all-encompassing feelings, and in the same sense, a miscommunication or disappointment can feel like being swallowed up, isolated, dark, disoriented. If this poet didn't have a space and place to share without fear of being made compliant, we, myself, and co-facilitators and school therapists, might have never known something deeply touching and emotionally complex was at play. We might have been on the receiving end of their frustration and have later seen a moment of aggression to track. Or worse still, we might have seen nothing at all and left the poet unheard and their feelings unresolved. But now, there's an opportunity to support this defiance, nurture it into a moment of self-actualization for the poet and self-discovery for us as educators in our practice. So when a poet wants to eat the world, I say, okay, cool. Then what? Because defiance needs to be celebrated, refined, and honed so it can become a strength. Because I want the poets who lead my workshops to have the skills to shape defiance into thoughtful speech and purposeful action, channeling it in ways that help them navigate the world and all its inequities. Because if you're going to eat this world, you'd better be bold enough to make a new one. Because we could sure use one of those right about now. Thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe for more episodes, and don't forget, you can read the full transcript on the blog at DonnieWelchPoetry.com and listen to it as the PoEDtry Podcast wherever you like to listen. Until next time, keep writing and keep learning.